Hello friends, this is Ganesh. Hope you are doing good. Happy to learn together. In this video, I'm going to explain the concept called layouts in Web Dynpro. So Dynpro, this is about screen development. So Web Dynpro is again screen development, but the output is in the web browser. So both Dynpro and Web Dynpro, screen development plays a major role. So in that, we are going to learn more about layouts in Web Dynpro because the drag and drop facility is not available in Web Dynpro. But in Dynpro, yes, in SE51 transaction, you have a layout option. You can drag and drop the component whatever you want, but the same is not possible here. So we try to create using a root element or on top of a root element or any other component, right? So for that we need some little different way of concept to be learned to understand how the layouts works in Web Dynpro. Okay, so that's what we're going to see in this video. Let's get into the slides first. So here, layouts. So once you understand different types of layout, and it has its own layout data. So two terminologies, layout and layout data. If you're comfortable with this, then designing any Web Dynpro requirement or Web Dynpro screen, it's quite simple. Okay. So let's get into the different types of layout first. The first layout is flow, and it depends on the version. You might have a different number of count of types could differ about the layout. You may have only 4 layouts or you may have 5 or 6. It depends on the version. Okay. So the first default layout is always flow layout. Once you create any design or any component, it's automatically pick the layout called flow layout. And a point here is not every component or the place of the component, the layout, the picking the layout differs. Okay, so that I will give little more idea once we get into the system, but just keep in mind because some UI component you can see the layout option is missing in the right hand side of the property. UI component property layout option is missing because the place where we kept the UI component or there are some restrictions for this, it's not applicable. Okay, so make sure the layout is not applicable or not visible for all the components and depends on the place where you keep your component also. Okay, we'll see that. So now come to the flow. Flow is a default layout and it flows the UI elements from left to right sequentially. Every layout has its own properties. Okay, so here you don't have an option to keep component in a separate line or a new line. That is not possible in flow. Whatever component you are keeping under using this layout, flow layout, it always keep your UI component in the same line. Okay, and it managed themselves whenever the screen is getting changed or minimized, resize the screen automatically. The size is not enough, automatically this component, the whatever component is not fit to the particular screen, it comes to the next line. So that comes automatically, depends on the screen size. Okay, but in the design file level, if you want to keep any component in the new line, that is not possible in flow. So once you are comfortable or once you are understanding the properties of each layout, then it's very easy to pick which layout is required for your requirement. And there is no vertical alignment for this layout. Okay, and the next one we are going to see as row. So row is like we can able to keep our UI component in the next line or very new line in the design level itself. So that is the usage of row. And this also doesn't have a vertical alignment. It's like same as a flow. Whenever there is a screen changes, size changes, automatically it adapts to the new line. So it's look like this. So 3 checkboxes. I'm keeping two component UI components in first line and second component in the third component in the second line. And so as I mentioned, we have two terminologies, layout and layout data. So this is layout data. So layout data is not applicable for all layout. Example, the previous flow, you don't have this layout data option. Okay, this property is not applicable for flow layout. But row layout, yes, most of the layouts you have layout data. So layout data determines where you want to keep your UI element. So row data, check 1 and check 2 are coming under the option called row data. Check 3 is coming under row head data. Simple way, simple understanding. If you want to keep any UI element in a new line in the new row layout, then you have to choose the layout data as row head data. Okay. And so the next one is form. So this is quite interesting layout. If you want to keep most of the what do you call UI elements in a different blocks, maybe in SAP they simply call it as newspaper pages. Okay, I'll show you that. It's look like this. So I want to design my page with some blocks. So general data is block 1, business partner block 2, processing data block 3, value date. So there are 5 different blocks, and I want to keep maybe in the parallel or in the downstairs. Okay, so like this also, if you want to keep, then you have to use form layout. It's quite interesting layout, and you can keep either in parallel or you can keep down as well. Okay, and under the general data you can have different UI elements. So here you can have just label and input field. Here you may have a table, here just a text field. So different UI elements you can keep it, because it's look like a different blocks. Okay, so it has its own values and restrictions, so you have to go through what are the properties of form layout and how we can able to achieve that. And for this form, we have 3 layout data. One is form data, and form head data, and form top data. So form data look like the general data. I can say it's a form data. Is everything is a form data here, and the purchase order is going to be a form head data. Okay, I'll explain the block level. So this block, general data is a form data, business partner is a form head data, and processing data is a form top data. Okay, so this way you have to keep your blocks. By default, everything in the same line. Like for general, every block is going to be keep it in the general same line. And if you decided this is going to be the next one, you have to decide as head data. Otherwise, you have to keep as a top data. It's pretty simple. I will explain once we get into the system. Okay, so this is about form data, form layout. And then matrix, so it's quite simple. I want to keep arrange the UI elements as a table. So these are some additional things, options I have used. Many properties you are able to find out. So how we can keep that one. So this is about matrix, and matrix also a layout data, matrix head data, same like row. So if you want to keep this in the second line, then you have to use head data. Then grid. So grid is always going to be layouts arranging the UI elements in a grid format, but this doesn't have a layout data. So this number of columns is going to be determined a property called call count. So if you say I want 5 columns, so it depends on the 5 columns, your UI elements are segregating in that. Okay, if you say 2 columns, this is actually 2 columns. So column 1 I have this, and automatically is going to column 2. Okay, so that way it is going to be, depends on the call count, this grid is going to be determined. Then splitter and tile, probably we need a different video to explain more about splitter. Over here it's like, again, it's kind of a form, it's quite interesting, so I decided to have a different video on splitter as well as tile. So tile is, it's like gather all the UI elements in the tile format. So let's have this a simple example, but we'll have a different video on this layout details. Then UI elements for grouping. So why we start with the grouping means, if you want to do a better design, always recommended is group the events, group the UI elements. So it's easy way to design your web Dynpro screen. So we have UI elements called group, transparent container, layout container, view container UI element. So these are helps to group different or related UI elements for your screen. So mostly in our examples, we are going to use group and a transparent container. Okay. Then yeah, that's it. Let's get into the system. And today we're going to create multiple views, and I'll show you how to add a view to the window. Basic designers, every window has at least one view, and some of the view could be a default one. Okay, then it automatically comes as a first view, and you can have a connection between view 1, view 2, view 3. So that we'll see quite later, but today we're going to see multiple views, and I'm going to add all the views in the window and keep one as a default one. Okay, let's get into the system. So before system, I would like to show you the documentation, product like SAP documentation about layouts. So it gives very good information about each layout. So if you come here like Dynpro, it shows like Dynpro app, reference UI elements, layout category, and general layout UI elements. Simply you Google it, layout UI elements, you'll get it. And here you can see flow layout and what are the property of the flow layout and descriptions and the behind the technical what is the runtime class is supporting this layout. Okay, so those things are available, and few examples also they mentioned which WebDynpro component you are able to see some layouts. Okay, depends on the version, you might have this component in your system. And the same like a form layout, so this was I have shown in my PPT also. So it's like you want to display some component with this, just go with the form layout. And the form layout data you have, so here they mentioned layout data, you have top data, and this is an example actually they have, and you have a data, and then one more is head data also. So there are three things available: layout data for form layout, and they have some restrictions for default values. Everything is available here. And then here it is: form data, head data, and top data. And the form layout advanced, these also we have one of the layout, we'll see it's quite later, same like splitter and tile. Okay, so just go through these things before get into the system. So understand what are the layouts, because this is very basic for Dynpro designing. If you're comfortable with the layouts, then you are good to go. Okay, so these are the information I want to show you. Okay, let's get into the system. My system, and I just created one component, an empty component. So by default I have a view, and going forward I'm going to create a multiple views for to show the different layouts, and we'll see how we can connect with the particular view in a window as well, how to keep a particular view as a default in a window. So now if you come here, it's a root UI element container, and you can see this container, you have the layout option. So the idea is every container has an option called layout. So it's not, as I mentioned, not all the UI element has this layout option, only for the container. So here you have the root container, and if I'm going to add any of the element, I can say input 1, input field, and here I'm not able to find the layout option because this is not a container, this is a UI element. So if you want to keep all your UI elements in a specific format, then keep your UI elements inside any of the container. So don't consider a root UI container for this. You have to create one more container under the root UI element. It could be a group container, or it could be a layout container, or a transport container. So then you have to keep all your UI elements inside that particular, I can say block or container, whatever it is. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is, let me create a container. Okay. Instead of a container, I'm going to create a kind of container. So I'm going to create a group. So here I'm going to say group. So here it is. So now you can see the group, the layout option is enabled for the group one. Okay. So now drag and drop my input field inside that. So maybe caption comes first and then input field. Okay. So now you can see this is group or group container, and here I have the layout option. By default, it's use flow layout. So here you have flow, form, grid, matrix, splitter, tile, and everything. Okay. Okay. So now if you just click caption, and you have the caption over here, you can click another UI element input, and here you have the properties. Okay. And I want to show you one more thing. Before that, I need one more element. I can say B1 button. Okay. So here it's a button here. Then let me add, this is a basic property of the button. So here I'm not going to write any single line of code, because this is just to add just to create the design, the screen design. Okay, so the basic things I'm going to give. Okay, I need a text also. Sorry, over here. Get, oops, get. Okay, tab. Yes, so here. Okay, so now this is what is the layout? It's a flow layout. So flow layout is keep on adding the UI elements in the sequence only. So here, because the block or the container group has a flow layout, you don't have an option called layout data. So layout data is enabled for few types only, not for all the types. So if you want to add some other things, again it's going to be okay, I can say checkbox. So it's keep on adding in the same line. So here check one, save it. So let me activate it and see how it reflects. Okay, um, activate it. Okay, oh sorry, better you activate from the root. It's always best practice. Yeah, because three things to be activated here. There is an error, yes, because I think the input field is not binded. Yes, it's not bind, that needs to be bind. So for that, at least I need one context attribute to bind my input. So let me go and create the local ones. Attributes, just value, type, character 10. Okay, that's it. Then go to layouts, click your input field and find the binding option. So here it is, value, and same thing to be done for my checkbox as well. So checkbox, I need at least character 1 value. So create attribute, this is for checkbox, and this is going to be a character 1 field. So go to layout and go to check, do the binding. So here it's checked, check one. Okay, save it, then display mode and activate it. Hope this works fine. Yes, it's getting activated all the components, and still the main is inactive. So make sure that is also active. That's it. Now create the application to execute. Just continue, save it. I saved in the local object. So now layouts and execute. Let's open a browser. Okay, so this is the output. So here it just, this is by basic, it's a flow layout. So whatever UI elements you added, it automatically added in the same line. Okay, so now the basic thing, not about the layout. Suppose I need some space. So few utilities are frequently used to make your screens with more visibility. So those are, so now I need a gap before my button, right? So just select it and go down to the properties all the way to down. So here it is. Okay, so V gutter I'm going to give medium, and yeah, let me see here. Okay, it's selected, and one more is, this one is padders, but I want this one LR pad. So we'll see little later details about this, but this will give some space between your UI elements. Okay, so what happened? Save it. Yep. Okay, so that is a space. And same thing if you want for a check. So this time I just go with large. Let's see how it goes. Okay, so okay, with the ruler. So rule is nothing but the, what do you call, just a simpler line. So let's go with large. This is So here, save, check, and activate. So this is irrespective of layout. Just give a space between your UI elements or UI components. Okay. So now refresh like this. And if the screen size it's automatically changes, it automatically go to the next line like this. Okay. So this is about the flow layout. So the next we are going to see about row layout. So row layout, you are able to see layout data, but in a view, you are not able to see any layout data. So this is my group is in flow layout. Okay. So if you go get into that any UI element under that container, you're not able to see layout data option because we have chosen the layout option is flow. So now I'm going to have one more view. Okay, maybe I can copy this just for time consuming. Okay, to second view. Okay, so this is my second view. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this as row layout. Okay, so there's a few things changed here. Back to I can say so the default one, and again you have to apply the gutter and everything. So now if you select this in box, or I can say okay this one, yeah. So button, you're able to see layout data. So here you need to just check it out. The first UI element doesn't have the layout data, but the second one has, because first one is always going to keep the first position of your layout or of your container. Okay, so by default you won't get layout data for the first UI element, but second one, yes, I want to keep this second UI element to the next line because I have row data, right? So I have a layout data option. So select it, you have an option called row head data and press tab or enter or save, then only it reflects in your screen. So it just comes here. Okay, and if you want to keep this as the next one, select it again and go here and change to row head data. Okay, so this is the usage of row. So let's see how to check this, because this is in a second view, not in the main view. So here if you go to Windows, every window is mapped or embedded with the default view called main. And now I want to include my second view to the window, because if you want to see a view technically in your browser, that needs to be added in your window. Okay, technically they call this embed window, sorry, embed view to the window. So here right click and there is an option called embed view, and these are disabled, don't worry. Go to F4, it will list out what are the views is not added to the window. So main is already added, so it's not listed here. Second and empty, we'll see the empty quite later. Click continue. So now one window has two views, main and second, but if you just see right click, so this is disabled, meaning this main is actually set as a default. So you have to change the view which you want to show as a default. Just right click, set as default. Okay, then we have a communication how to change or how to control transfer to from main to second. Those are it's common and it's very simple also. We'll see quite later. So now if you right click, so this is the second window, and sorry, second view is a default now. Okay, so you activate it first. I think this is not active, my view is not active, so display, right click here and activate it. Okay, it's active now, so go here and refresh. Okay, so my second window is visible now, and this is a row layout. Okay, so the next we're going to see about form layout. Let me have one more view, copy and paste it. So just copy, it automatically comes here. So just double click and go to change mode. Okay, so here the first thing is go to root UI element, keep this root UI element as a form layout. So So it's copy paste. So it's copied from the second view. So it just selected as a row. Okay. So selected my form layout. Sorry. Yes. Root URL form. And go to GU G1, your first container. And this is also my form layout. Okay. Done. And here you can this up to your design if you want to keep in the same line or if you want to change, you can change it. So layout data here, I'm going to keep this as a head. I want to keep these two in one line. Okay, like this. So this is my group one. Then I want to use the next group. So now I'm going to create one more container. So this time I'm going with transport container. Okay. And make sure by default is a flow layout, make sure that is also be in a form layout and have a data whatever you want. So here right click, I'm going to a text view. Okay, so the text edit under my transport container and okay, let me quickly have a table node. Okay, material, and it's going to be from Mara. So as I mentioned, I'm not going to write any code, so I don't worry about all the cardinalities and everything. Okay, so here I'm going to attributes from components of structure, whatever I have created. So I want material, few things. Okay, so I have a node because I'm going to add a table in my next container. So here this is group one. If you see the layout data, it's form layout because by default it's very next to your root container. The next one I have made it as, so the, sorry, this one I have made this as form data. So it could be a form data over here, or you can just change to form top data. Okay, so now form top data is going to be keep it in the same line, but if you have a form head data, it's going to be have in the next line. So what I'm going to do is let me have a form head data here because the next one I'm going to keep it here, the third one, third container. Okay, keep it in the same line. So here I'm going to have one more, or maybe I can have a group. Okay, which has a table. So this needs to be added here, right? So form layout is top data. Okay, so caption, just add a text 3. Okay, so under group 3 I need a table, root element, table, right click, where's binding, create binding, context, create the node, continue. Okay, that's it. So this is one first block, second block, third block. Maybe it is a transparent container. I don't have this kind of a heading. If you want, you can just add it. Okay, and save it. Then go to window, add your third view, embed your third view, F4, third one, continue, and keep the third one as default. Okay, save it, back to it from the root. Yes, so the text view is not mapped. So the binding property, mandatory binding property is not done. So value, save it, right click, activate, it's done. Okay, make sure this is the current screen also active. Yes, so go here and refresh. Yes, so this is a form layout. So this is block 1, and this is block 2 and this is block 3. Okay, so depends on how you want, you can just create it using the form layout option. So for form layout is little easy, like it have more options compared to the other layouts. So if you want excuse me, your UI design with more blocks, preferable is form layout. And other layouts, matrix grid is quite simple, same like row and flow. Just go through that, and if you have any doubt, please let me know. Let me try creating a video for a split layout. Could be interesting, same like form. I'll just create it and post it as soon as possible. And yeah, that's it about the layouts. Go through this, and if you have any doubt, please let me know. Thank you so much for your time. See you in the next video. Bye.